Hi everyone and welcome along to Sonic Academy with me, Chris, and sat beside me is the delectable Phil Johnson.
How's it going, Chris?
It's going okay. Guys, we're really super excited to be here today. We are going to take you through our brand new Reverb plugin, Vela. So, Phil.
Yes.
Tell us, what's the big idea?
So Vela is our new Reverb plugin, and it is a sort of new take on it, where we wanted to do something a bit different than your sort of standard cookie cutter reverbs. And so we've taken what we've learned from the likes of Kick 3 and the node-based system and tried to apply that to a reverb to give you that sort of really versatile editability. So you can see here we have a bunch of different tabs, and the three central ones, which control the late tail, are all node based. So you can control decay, density, and filters with our node based graph system, and that can be tempo synced. And you can have a bunch of nodes, curves, all the stuff that we have in Kick 3, so you can get really sort of sound designy with your reverbs and do a whole bunch of stuff.
Brilliant. So if you're used to our GM, Banana, or node-based system in Kick, this is going to be kind of familiar to you. I think we should probably dive in. So when you say the late perfection, so reverb is kind of made up of two components, is it?
Yeah, normally classic algorithmic reverbs have an early reflection system and then a late system. The late system is usually some sort of feedback network. We're taking a different approach to this and creating sort of a velvet noise cloud. And that's how we are able to control it with nodes. Usually with a feedback network system, you're only really, one tap goes into the next tap, into the next tap, into the next tap, and fades out. And it's very hard to control the decay over time of that. So we took a different approach so we can have that sort of node-based control over everything.
Brilliant.
Let's take a look at the density. So the really cool thing about Vela is the way you can control density over time. I've created a preset here showing 10 nodes at the start and expanding up to over 1,000 nodes. And I'll just play a rim clap here, just make sure nothing else going. So you can hear there that we are getting sparse nodes at the start, or sparse taps at the start, and then it increases up to higher densities.
So it's really very short, very delays. That's kind of is the starting point of most reverbs. Yeah.
And we can obviously, let's increase that quicker over time so you can sort of hear. That starts to sound more like a reverb. You're not really going to use 10 taps at the start of a reverb. You're probably going to be somewhere between 50 and 100. Having sparse taps at the start helps it give you a better sense of space. So when your ear can hear those discrete taps sort of bouncing off the walls of your room, that's how you sort of infer the space. So you sort of want to, it's a balancing act between how smooth you need it versus how sort of much spatial information you're getting. So things like vocals, where it's quite a diffused sort of sound to begin with.
Yep.
You can get away with quite sparse taps.
Yep.
And then you can get a really wide sense of space. Maybe for drums, you would want to increase the density to sort of make it smoother, so you don't, if you imagine the attack of a drum, you don't want to.
Yeah, you don't want sort of rhythmically interfering with the drums either, and sounding a bit confusing for the bit of the transient.
So you can hear there, we can start off, and we've got a lot more taps. Now, if you want to take things a step further, we can go into our late diffusion section. You can still hear sort of discrete taps.
Yeah.
But when we bring this up, we should get.
Now it sounds like a reverb.
Totally smooth reverb.
And that's kind of simulating what happens in the real world, where the taps start bouncing off different materials and starting to sort of smear. And
exactly, yeah. And you can do things where you maybe want the very early stages, you want really low taps, and that. Get those flutters off the walls. We've got quite a lot of diffusion, so you could bring that down.
And this is quite unique. This density, being node-based density, is kind of unique to
Yeah, well,
Vela.
it opens up a couple of possibilities. So obviously, just pure sound design, you can go really deep with your, how you want things to sound and how the sense of space moves about. But it also gives you the opportunity to recreate classic reverb, so you can analyze the density of those, apply it to this, and you can get really close to some of them. So we've got stuff like 480L, Bricastes, and we've got. If you check our website, we've actually got a funky A/B test that you can do, which we've got samples of our reverb versus samples of the original units, and you can see if you can tell the difference. I can't.
Yeah, no, we've all tested it, and I'm terrible at these things anyway. So that's density, and what is the level doing density? It's like a multiplier, is it?
So yes, we've got the actual density control knob. So if you notice, we're at 20 and 81 at 100%. So we take that down to 50%. We're now at 10 and 40.
Yep.
So it's a trim knob for the density. So if you just quickly want to just see what it sounds like with everything lower density, you can do that. And you can go right down to really sparse delays. We've also got seed. So I'll explain how that works. Seed determines the random spatial time of the actual taps. So when we're creating this velvet noise print, we have to determine where each of the wee taps go, and the seed is just a random generator that will randomize that. You can tap on the dice icon, and it'll just randomize where they are. So let me turn the lid off. And then we'll tap it again. And you can hear there subtly changing the spatial or the spacing of those taps. So you might get some that are more bunched up in certain places, some that are overlapping. And what that'll do when you're into sort of real reverb territory, some of the different seeds might have various different sounds. So some might be a bit bassier, due to phase shifting on certain frequencies. So you can play about with those, and some might be wider, some might be sort of brighter, just depending on how those random phase relationships land. So you can play about with that. If you want to say you find one you really like, that sounds class, got a really boomy vibe.
Make a note.
You can double click, make a note, and then reuse it in other presets.
And what about Decay?
So Decay,
it's a bit self-explanatory, isn't it?
Yeah, essentially Vela is a non-linear reverb. So if you think of units like RMX16 was very well known for having a good non-linear algorithm in it, and we can replicate stuff like that. So let's go to our non-linear section, and we'll go. This is modeled off the. Let's do the loop. So gated sound, it was used all over the 80s drums, and you can see here we have, it's not a sort of, on-off gate, but it has that sort of gated vibe to it, yeah. And again, you can go in and completely modify that. So you say you wanted like a complete on-off gate, we can do that. The other thing we can do is snap.
Yeah.
So we can turn snap on.
And if you click, for those watching, can you click the timeline?
Yes. So we click the timeline, and that is actually our beats and bars now.
Which again is a unique thing, I think.
Bring that down.
So we make it really giddy. So you can time your reverbs now.
You sure can.
And that's kind of like your classic reverse trance clap reverb. There it is. There it is.
El Nino.
I've been looking for it since El Nino.
So yeah, so you can do all that. You got complete control. You can also do like crazy rhythmical stuff. If we just put a bunch of nodes in, let's go to 60 or 30 seconds. We can do nice rhythmical stuff.
Now, the other thing you're saying, the nodes aren't tempo synced.
So the nodes, the snap is tempo synced at the current tempo, but when you change the tempo,
Yeah.
the nodes don't change, but the timeline changes. So you can see
Because
there.
that would change the characteristic of the reverb.
Exactly. So you don't want to be changing your your BPM on your track and your whole everything starts shifting about. So, say we went to 120, we still got snap on, so it'd just be a case of nudging these back to a.
So it's simple to check out another tempo.
Yeah, exactly. So again, it just opens up a world of effect possibilities, and we've got presets there where you can create a almost like a white noise sweep for effect stuff. We've got really nice big trance kick booms that you can really fine tune where they land. So
brilliant.
Yeah.
So that's a very kind of quick overview of the node-based system, how you can do nodes with density and decay. I think the next sort of big area we would look at would be the filters. So we have a filter.
Yes.
But then we also have pre and post EQ. So
there's
a lot of sound sculpting possibilities.
Our filter section would be sort of in a regular reverb would be the damping section.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think of how a real reverb works in a room, when the taps bump out into the walls and bounce off curtains or sofas or whatever it is, a certain amount of frequency will be absorbed, a bit of top and a bit of bottom. And so what you get back is a filtered signal, and that will increase over time. So the top bounces there, loses a bit of top end, bounces over there, loses a bit more top end. So over time, that frequency is going down, and we can emulate that here. So we have a low pass filter and a high pass filter. Both filters have 3 slope options: 6 dB, 12 dB, and 24. 6 dB is probably the most natural sounding.
Mm-hmm.
12 dB, a lot of algorithmic reverbs use. Some of them use 6, some of them use 12. But I noticed, I think the Procasti has a steeper slope. And then we got 24, which is a bit more of an effecty type vibe.
Yeah, for sound sculpting
sculpting, yeah. And again, no bass system. You can start anywhere in the frequency range and end up anywhere else. So I'm going to actually pick a different preset for this. Let me see. Let's go to this one again. Bring the density up a bit. Get a bit of diffusion. I'll use a clap just so you can hear the. So we go to our filter. Start at 20.
This is quite an extreme.
This is quite an extreme.
So
just to sort of hear it. You can hear it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again we can.
Even more
different filters.
Cool.
Obviously, in a if you're trying to recreate a real space, you want that sort of more of a. A lot of times, the initial actual frequency that you're getting back will be quite low.
Mm-hmm.
And that can go down quite quickly. Again, we've got curves, so you can curve that about. And you can do it for high pass and low pass at the same time. So if you just want a quick and easy way of just knocking off some bass,
yeah,
you can do that.
You're thinning the reverb up, perfect.
You can hear there, lost a little bass, and you can do that over time. So again, it will be a natural thing over time that a reverb will lose some energy in the low end as well, or depending on the room, it might gain energy if there's nodes acting at certain points.
Standing waves and stuff building up. Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. Sounds like my studio.
Yeah, what else have we got?
So, and then we have our pre and post EQ that are sort of just very much sculpting.
Yep, so pre-EQ is acting on the incoming signal.
So you have something, maybe a really low resonant note in a vocal coming in, and you go, I don't want this to affect the reverb.
Yeah.
Get rid of it.
Exactly. And we have all the usual slopes. So we've got a high pass, a shelf, low pass, and a low shelf, and then like a bell. So all the stuff you would need. And the low pass, you can modify the resonance by just pushing up. With the bells and the shelves, you can use your mouse wheel.
Very nice. I mean, there's an analyzer. If you play something, you can see the analyzer coming in.
Yeah.
So again, visually,
Let me just, I think I've got a lot of filtering happening there. So we can use our scroll wheel,
to really dial in those frequencies.
or you can use the panel here.
And that's affecting the incoming signal prior to hitting the reverb.
Exactly, yep. And then if you want to do a post EQ, which is on the whole signal at the end, you can do the same thing. We've got all the same curves and all the same controls. So again, just another way to sculpt your sound tonally.
Brilliant.
One thing we didn't really touch on was the diffusion when we were looking at the late. So we've got two diffusion sections. We've got early and late, and they're independent. They are actually tuned slightly differently as well. So generally speaking, as we were talking about with the nature of the discrete taps, you want the spatial information to sort of be more coherent.
Mm-hmm.
So the early reflections are the early diffusions designed to still maintain a bit of the attack.
So they're not as diffused.
Not as diffused, yeah, but it still gives you a bit of diffusion, so it's not like super spiky. But the late is a lot more sort of diffused, slushy. You don't have to worry about transient timing and stuff like that. Obviously, with our early section, things are designed to be spatial, and we didn't want the early diffusion to strip that away.
So whilst we're talking about early and late, should we have a look at our whole early reflection system then?
Sure. So,
And the brilliant thing, again, I don't, not hugely familiar with other plugins. You can switch off the late reverb or switch off the early, so you can really dial in and hone into the different components of the reverb.
So we have switches here.
And you've always said to me that this defines the space, does it?
Yeah, so the early reflections really, it doesn't inform the sort of size of the place and the sort of spatial structure. So we have captured a bunch of real spaces, classic reverbs, and then we have some sort of effecty type stuff, delays and things. Mm-hmm. So the early reflection system is actually based on an XML file in the background, which has just a series of taps listed on their volumes. Mm-hmm. So you can create your own or modify the ones you've got. I would suggest obviously copying and pasting new ones. And we have analysed a bunch of real spaces and classic ones to be pretty close. And then you can go into delays. So let's hear. And ping pong. So if you're looking for more effecty stuff, you can do that too. Let's look at some of the real spaces. So it's a stage.
Yeah, so small, sizable room.
Yeah, and let's listen to the diffusion on that. So you're not losing the sense of space necessarily.
Yeah. It's just becoming smeared.
Yeah, it takes quite a while to sort of get that to work properly. And then we also have a bunch of sort of classic digital.
Sounds very digital.
Yeah. And then we can also adjust the size here. So we can take something make it even smaller.
Right, yep. Tighter room.
Tighter room. Or make it bigger.
And you've also said that gives a sense of being close.
Yes.
Further away.
So generally speaking, if your early reflections are large, it sounds like the source of the sound is closer to the microphone, and if the early reflections are further away, the source is at the back of the room.
Yeah, yeah.
So let's. I'll turn the late back on. Maybe not go just as large a decay. You can even hear when I switch that off, it sounds like it just like
moves,
drops
yeah.
back. That's going back into the distance.
Yeah. Sounds like somebody's going with the microphone closer.
So that's a really good way of, if you're producing a track, we always talk about that sort of three-dimensional space of you've got panning left and right, and you've got front, forward and back,
yeah,
and how to to mix well. You want to sort of be able to position all your sounds in that sort of 3D space, and so reverb is one of the ways you can do that. And again, having that early reflection, being able to push that forward and back is a very nice thing.
Yeah, and again, I find it really helpful to switch the late reflection off and just see where the early is, and go between the two, and really then dial in, what is actually happening.
Exactly. Yeah.
Brilliant. So another big area that Vela has built in, which again a lot of other reverbs doesn't have, is its de-essing and ducking system.
Yes. So
you must probably select a nice, beautiful vocal for that.
Get a nice vocal preset.
And Vela will ship with hundreds of presets. So.
I'm shattered by what I found.
So I'll just bring that down so you can mostly hear the reverb.
I'm shattered by what I found.
So we're mostly hearing the reverb there. So de-essing, we can, as a usual de-esser, select a frequency portion of our sound that we want to affect the compressor. And we also have our threshold control.
So you can hear the S's of the shadow now.
Yes,
sort of
I'll bump this up even a bit more. If we turn it off and listen to it back. So you can hear there we're removing all that high frequency from the source signal.
Yeah.
So it's not getting passed on through to the reverb. And again, if you want to have your vocal really bright, but you don't want your sibilants too splashy on your reverb, then that's what you want to do. And I think there's a few presets there where we have that already built in and set up.
And it's visually brilliant because you can see where you're focusing, and you can see I'm focused in on this area. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, so that's that. We also have ducking. So ducking a reverb is also a fairly standard practice where you want your vocal to have that sort of tail of reverb, but you might not necessarily want the vocal or the reverb on top of the vocal as it's playing.
Just might swamp it, and you might just lose a bit of detail.
You want that clarity, but then at the end you want that spatial sort of stuff. So ducking is a way where we can achieve that. So I'll bring back up the...
By what I found.
Bring that back up. I'll get rid of that crazy EQ.
I'm shattered.
So ducking, we can use the threshold and bring it down to a certain point where it will catch the signal, and when it catches the signal, we have a ratio amount by how much it's turning the volume down, like a compressor. We're in compressor mode.
I'm shattered by what I found.
So there you can hear.
And you can hear there when it stops, you get the release. I'll add a bit more late onto that so we can hear it.
I'm shattered by what I found.
And again, we can control the ratio if we just want that more subtle.
I'm shattered by what I found.
And again, we can control attack release if you want something super dramatic.
I'm shattered by what I found.
Yeah, so it releases very quickly, attacks very quickly.
Yeah.
And again, it can be
I'm
applied to the early, to
shattered
the
by
late,
what
or to
I
both.
found.
Exactly, yeah. And you can also use an external sidechain. So if you have sidechain mode on, you can, in your DAW, route a signal into Vela that controls the reverb.
So like a click, and you could have a pumping, ducking reverb.
Yep, you could do something like that. Or say you have a bunch of synth leads that you want to, just duck so it's not all a big wash. You could do that as well.
And there's two slightly different types of ducking.
Yes, so we have compressor mode, which is sort of the most smooth, and then gate mode, which is more sort of on and off type vibes.
I'm shattered.
Turn it off, I've got sidechain on.
I'm shattered by what I found. In a million pieces on the ground.
Yeah, so most people probably want the compressor one if you're working with vocals and you want to create a natural thing. But again, we've got the gate. Again, you could be running a rhythmical pattern of clicks into your sidechain and using that to trigger some stuff in a vocal, and you could get completely creative that way.
Again, you could have a reverb on a pad, and as the vocal hits, you could just duck the reverb away to give more space.
Exactly, yeah.
And we have sort of lastly, I suppose, is we have an input filter that you can again further finely tune.
Yes, again, it's sort of similar idea to the de-esser, I suppose, where you can sort of limit it to a certain frequency. So that's basically, think of the sidechain signal that's coming in. Mm-hmm. That's just getting filtered. So maybe you only want to duck it when it's the sort of mid information or the high information or whatever it is you want to do.
Let's move then so we've looked at the nodes, we looked at the filtering, de-essing, and then let's look at the bottom of the plugin. So we have two sections here. We have pre-delay.
Yes, pre-delay. So all reverbs tend to have that. It's just a delay between when the signal happens and the reverb happens. Yeah. You might want to create a bit of space in a vocal to increase intelligibility. Again, for drums, you might want to just move it slightly out of the way of the initial attacks. You're not getting phasing. Mm-hmm. And one other thing we can do is we hold shift.
Oh, yes.
You can see that, again, this is grid synced. Mm-hmm. So if you want to dial something rhythmical in,
yeah,
you can do that as well. And did we have something else that was grid synced? Oh, it's the decay here, isn't it? Yeah. So you can hold shift there to snap your decay. That's the shift. And then input width. So you can essentially, Vela is independent stereo reverb. So whatever's happening, they're two separate things. There's not much crosstalk between the two reverbs. So you can change how you want that to be interacting with the reverb by changing the input width. So input width at mono, no matter where your source signal is panned, you're going to get a stereo reverb. So say you have a vocals panned slightly left. Mm-hmm. If your input width is high, the reverb will move slightly to the left as well. So you can sort of create that sense of where something is in the space a bit better, depending on where you have the input width and what you're trying to achieve with it. So,
and then moving on, we've looked at seeds. So modulation, tell me, how does modulation relate to reverbs, and why do we need modulation and reverbs?
So let me bring up a preset. Okay, so you can see when we're repeating the same note, you're getting this build up of very similar delays on top of each other, which creates a sort of a ringing and a phasing.
Yeah.
So that used to be a really big problem with feedback reverbs, because once you had this sort of build up of similar information, you would get these like
it's just coming back in and just coming back in and just adding.
Yeah, and you could get like reverbs would overblow and you get like just a particular frequency just really coming through. So modulation would get around that by subtle pitch changes to each of the taps at various stages in the feedback network. But the resulting thing of that was, while it made reverb smoother, it does actually give a really nice, like super nice
Lush.
chorusy
Yeah.
effect. So we wanted to emulate that as well. So if you listen to modulation on versus modulation off. So static, ringy,
Yeah.
modulation on, slightly chorusy and smoother.
And you don't need a lot
No,
to remove that ringiness and to get it nice.
yeah, so we can go down quite low. Let's go to 20s.
Yeah.
You still get a nice vibe. And obviously we can go right up to crazy territory.
The bees! And have you a setting that you particularly like?
It's still quite chorusy. Around 30s, I would say, is sort
30s,
of
okay.
a nice balance
And
between...
you prefer sort of 2, 4, or 8?
So 2,
Sorry,
4, 4, 6, and 8. 8 will use slightly more CPU because it's sort of duplicating more channels.
Yeah.
So you can generally get away with 4. Still sounds nice and lush, but if you really want the supremo maximum, go up to 8.
Very
But
cool.
yeah.
So we've had a really, really quick run through of all the main features of the plugin. I think, Phil, we're going to show off now and show you some of the amazing presets that are going to make this plugin an absolute must-buy.
Yes, I'm just going to turn so we don't get too much bleed.
Okay.
I'm shattered by what I found. I'm shattered by what I found.
You can hear a nice brightness to that one.
Yeah.
I'm shattered by what I found.
That sounds concretey.
Yeah, it sounds like it's definitely in a hall.
I'm shattered by what I found.
I made that one by I was listening to an a cappella of Taylor Swift to try and see what vocal
Oh, it's called
reverb she was using on her
it's
sort of
called
ballads.
Taylor? Okay, cool.
I'm shattered by what I'm shattered by what I found.
So you can hear a real good variation there.
I'm shattered by what I found.
Bit tighter.
And again, in the preset, you can list these in terms of... I love the way you can list them in time.
Yes, you can sort by decay, or you can sort by name,
Yeah, that's a really cool idea.
or recent. So if you're made your own, let's go. I like decay.
Sorry, I like Decay, I think, because you sort of want to get in an area.
Some shorter ones.
I'm shattered by what I found.
It's more of like a delay one.
I'm shattered by what I
Very
found.
nice.
I'm shattered by what I found.
Very cool. There's lots of
I'm
variation.
shattered by what I found.
Very roomy.
Yeah, so there's a bunch of big ones and wee ones. Vocal deep delay.
I'm shattered by what I found.
Big.
That's using the delay in the early reflection systems.
Yes.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So next up, we're going to have a listen to some acoustic guitar.
Yeah, so you can... I didn't realize this, but a lot of people would use the non-linears for acoustic guitar, so you don't get that sort of ringing.
Okay. I've never really mixed acoustic guitar.
I know, well, that's a... Sounds really good. Really good sense of space. Some of the rooms are going to be
Tasty.
a bit of time.
That's a classic
Yes.
PCM.
PCM 70. Classic Bricasti. Writer piano chamber. M7 large wood rooms have really famous. acoustic guitar. I think this has a bit more modulation.
Very nice.
Main City is is one of the like famous studios that I sort of recreated.
Studio City, is it in LA or something? Or?
Could be, yeah, I can't remember exactly which one it was. And then Motown Chamber is Sun. The chamber in Sun. Brighter.
Was Sun? That wasn't Motown.
Oh, no, it wasn't. What's the Motown one?
There was a Motown studio. I can't remember, but Sun was Elvis.
Elvis, yeah. What's the Motown one? I can't remember. There we go. What about some lead stuff? Let's go for some spacey effects. So there's quite a few from Strymon.
Right. So Strymon's the very famous guitar pedal.
Yes.
Every time I play that, it reminds me of something. It's like a Chili Pepper song.
It's got same vibes. Let's go for some super massive.
Mm-hmm.
This one is just how big could we get it? I'll stop that. A big long tail. M7 Europa is another famous sort of.
So these are big 20-second long tails. Beautiful. But still get definition. It's not swamping.
Yeah. And then I suppose a lot of people will be interested in this is the trancier ones. So we actually have a whole synth section. Let's sort by Decay and get the big ones at the top. Let's go for massive trance lead first.
Super sexy.
Nice big space. And then this one sort of was designed more for like, ARPs, shorter ARPs.
So you've got the sort of playing that rhythmical.
Yeah.
So it's showing Vela when the rhythm stuff works.
Yeah. Brighter, sizzly.
Really nice, really, really lovely stuff.
And then back where we started with
Some guitars.
some guitars. Is this a guitar? And this is the piano one.
Was it? Oh, electric piano.
What can we do? Studios? We haven't done
Yeah.
studios. That's good. That is an amazing sense of space, isn't it?
Yeah.
So if you want to add a tiny bit of ambience to
Something,
a bit of air or whatever, you've got all that as well. So I think we've covered everything.
I think
Chris,
we
haven't
have. If you have any questions, hit us up. Don't forget we have a Discord forum where you can ask questions. We're always on there answering everything. It really is. Anybody we've sent it to, anybody in the beta has come back and just said, look, this is really, really, at its core, it sounds like a brilliant reverb. And then it has all these bells and whistles and it's node-based system. It's pre and post EQ. It's de-essing and ducking built in. The early late reflection systems, the diffusion. I could go on and on. It's brilliant.
Yeah, we have a product page where you can listen to a bunch more demos and do the test, so the A/B test, which I would definitely recommend you go and have a go.
I think if you get it all right, you win like £1,000 or
$1 million.
I'm only joking. You do not win anything.
And we will be releasing should be released when this video goes out.
Yes. There's no point in releasing this video on your So yeah, it will be on sonicacademy.com/.
And there should be a demo.
Fellow. Yeah, you should be. You'll get a 14-day demo. Do go try it out. It is a really. It's made making reverbs a lot easier for me. There was many times I'd open up a reverb and there was just these knobs that I was like, I don't understand what these do. This is so simple.
Exactly.
So, guys, thank you very much for joining us, and we'll hope to see you all very soon.